All right, today we're going to go over 3 ways that you can boost income on rental properties in Austin. As we all know, property prices in Austin have gotten very expensive, property taxes in Austin have gotten very expensive, and the interest rates have gone way up. So, how do you make rental property investing in Austin work? Well, lucky for you, today I'm going to tell you 3 ways you can make that happen. And I've got Connor here who's actually making these exact things happen on 2 of his properties, and we're going to talk about the third too. So I'll get started with the first one that Connor's not doing here, and I'll let him take the next two. But the first one is co-living or rent by the room housing. So this can be an extremely profitable way to rent property in Austin, and it can also be a great way for people who are looking for cheaper areas to live, to have a nice, affordable place to live in Austin, and they can actually make some great friends while doing it. So what co-living is you buy a house. Ideally, you buy a house that's 3 or 4 or 5 bedrooms. And if you can add bedrooms, you've got like an open space, maybe a dining room where you can add an extra room, that's great. Obviously, the more the better because you're renting by the room. What you do when you rent by the room there is you charge everybody, let's say, $800 a room. So if you've got 6 bedrooms, making $800 a room, that's what, $4,800 on a rental property? That's an amazing gross income, and a lot higher than what you're going to make on renting that same property out long term. So if $4,800 in income coming in from the property, let's say the regular rent would be $2,500 on that property, and this isn't a crazy number I just threw out. You absolutely can take something that rents for $2,500 just to one family, add a couple rooms to it, and throw in a bunch of roommates, make $4,800. You can even split the utilities up. Maybe you do some sort of rubs where the utilities are just build out, ratio utility building system, build out per how many people are in there. So if there's 6 bedrooms, everybody takes their piece and just pays that every month too. Make these nicer. People do things like label cabinets, like, hey, this is room A's cabinet, here's room B's cabinet, and then they'll label pieces of the refrigerator. They'll have some easy house rules, and maybe they pay for cleaning once or twice a month, just to add something to that co-living situation. But again, this is a great way to really boost your rental income in the Austin area, and really wherever you are. But it's one of the great ways you can make rentals work in Austin, make great money, and hold on for the long term for all the appreciation we're going to get. So the next one, I'm going to talk about medium-term rentals, but I'm going to turn it over to Connor because he's the one that taught me about medium-term rentals, and in turn boosted my rental income on my properties.
Yeah, so medium-term rentals are providing furnished housing to guests through sites like Airbnb, VRBO, and Furnished Finder for stays of typically 30 days or more. So medium-term rental, the average guest for us stays about 45 to 60 days, and by furnishing the property and renting it out, we can actually increase our rental amount significantly. So when we bought our duplex in North Austin, the 2-bed 1-bath unit was renting for $1,400. We furnished it for about $5,000, and then we've been renting it out for $2,650 ever since,
Oh.
and with less than 5% vacancy. So it is a great strategy if you want to boost your income in places where long-term rents don't make sense, like Austin. You know, like you said, property taxes are high, interest rates are high, property values are high.
Mm-hmm.
All those things combined makes it really difficult to make long-term rentals work. And this is just taking a normal house, putting in some furnishings, and then renting it out. And it's relatively low cost. I mean, you do have to buy the house, but you just got to buy furniture and then just manage it properly. So
Yeah, and Connor, I think the 2 biggest questions I get, and you already covered part of it, is where do you find these people? But who is going to be the person coming? Everybody assumes it's just all traveling nurses, and then you hit the other part is, how much vacancy am I going to have, and how many months of vacancy is usually the question I get, and I think that's not the right way to look at it, because you're not usually a month. It's usually a couple days in between stays, and those add up to, like you said, somewhere around 5 to 10%, depending on the property, depending on how you run it. is, I think, one of the most important pieces. But can you talk about the types of people that come to these properties? Because I know you have a lot of experience with it.
Yeah, so we typically have 4 types of guests. The first type is a group that is relocating to Austin. So they're looking for a permanent place to stay, whether that's they're finding a year lease or they're finding a house to buy. So they just need somewhere to live while they figure that out in the meantime. The second group is coming for work, traveling nurses, business people, salespeople, things like that. They physically need to be in Austin. So they're coming, they're not living here permanently, they don't have furniture with them. That's why they're coming. The third group are people that move around remotely, they work remotely, and they're just traveling around the US. Austin is a huge destination for much of the country. It's a really cool tourist spot. People from all over are coming here. And working from home is very popular in the tech industry, and we have a huge tech industry here. So that's very common. And then the fourth type of guest is people who are displaced from their homes in Austin. So insurance claims, fires, floods, maybe a kitchen renovation that they don't want to be in their house for a certain period of time, so they need a place to go. So those are typically the 4 types that we get. And to your point about vacancy, like you said, the vacancy comes between stays. Mm-hmm. So it comes a week here, 2 weeks there. It just depends on who gets in there. So the best way to really limit vacancy is to make sure your calendar is open, make sure you're priced well, and that you start having accurate prices before the vacancy comes. So what I do is when I get a booking, immediately, let's say bookings for 3 months, I go out 3 months and I increase the rate on my calendar. So that if anyone books the next day for the following 3 months, then I get a higher rate, right?
Oh,
but
cool.
That's not sustainable.
Yeah.
So once I'm 6 weeks out, I drop the price by a little bit. And then if I go another week and it's not booked out yet, I'll drop the price a little bit. And then every week at a time, I'll drop it and stair step down until I find that sweet spot where I can still make higher rent than that previous booking, but still have lower vacancy. And then another point to make sure is a lot of people travel with pets these days.
Yeah.
It's extremely common. In recent past, it's been easy to put them on an airplane too, so people love it, especially if you're going somewhere for 30 days or more.
Yeah.
How much does it cost to house your dog?
$50 a day per dog. So
Yeah.
that's expensive. It's expensive.
Yeah, absolutely. So people would just rather bring it, pay a couple $100 pet fee, and put them on a plane. So, yeah, pet friendly, great way to limit vacancy and increase demand.
Yeah, and I think that what's so important about limiting vacancy, like you're talking about, Connor, is that, you know, if you have vacancy, you didn't get any money for that time. So if you could do like you're talking about and you kind of adjust pricing, and you can use softwares to do this,
Yep.
you know, Price Labs does as well. I don't like Airbnb's smart pricing personally, but you can get softwares that can automate a lot of this, and it will help you stay booked as much as possible. And because if you're not booked, again, you're not getting money, you're still paying the mortgage, you're still paying a lot of the utilities, it's costing you money, so you're losing way more than just the money you lost from not being booked. All right, so last one here, we're going to talk about short-term rentals in Austin. Everybody wants to know about short-term rentals right now. They're super popular in the Austin area, and they're also very hard to do legally in the Austin area. And I put air quotes there because I don't know if it's necessarily breaking the law. I'm not a lawyer, but I know that it's against city ordinance to run a short-term rental without a license. So there's 3 ways you can get a license. You get the type 1 is a non-owner occupied, extremely hard to get, and I tell people almost impossible. You're not going to get this type 1 license. The type 2 is you live in the property. Extremely easy to get. You just pay the fees, you jump through all their hoops. They'll issue the license when they feel like it. It might be 2 months, it might be 6 months. Depends when you catch them. And then there's the type 2A license. This is fairly new. That is like an accessory dwelling unit or another unit in your property. There's actually a type 3 license. It's a little more obscure, and that's a license for commercial property. I think for the purposes of this call, most of the stuff we're going to be talking about is going to be the type 1 and type 2. If you're a commercial property owner, that's awesome. I don't know anything about that. But you can get these licenses. You can run short-term rentals and medium-term rentals in conjunction if you have these licenses, and you can take advantage of all the really cool events we have here in Austin. We have a short-term rental here in Austin, and for some of the bigger events, some of the days are like $600 a day for 2 bedrooms, according to the pricing software we use. So that's amazing. I know people have gotten even more than that. It just, again, it depends on demand, but you can make a lot of money on a short-term rental. Just remember, you got to get the license to do it right. You have to pay the taxes. You have to jump through all the hoops. It's a little bit annoying. Short-term rental is more of a business. It's not a rental. I would say medium-term rentals, and you can chime in here, they're very easy to manage. Almost never hear from them. Extremely much higher cash flow than long-term rental, and maybe even easier to manage than long-term rental, because you control so much of it. So there's not as much that's out of your control that can go wrong. Short-term rental, it's a business. You have to run it right. When you run it right, you can be extremely profitable. So this far end is going to be probably the most profitable of the 3 strategies, and the most work. Rent by the room, probably the very similar to medium-term rental. Short-term rental, the most work here in Austin. Do you have any examples of short-term rentals going well here in Austin that you can share?
Yeah, so like you, I have a short-term rental in North Austin. It does pretty well. I like the midterm better because I enjoy not thinking about it as much. And the property is just not conducive to being a good short-term rental. It's a duplex. People enjoy having a house. You know, when people choose an Airbnb versus a hotel, they want space.
Something special about it.
Exactly. So my product specifically doesn't bode well to that, but I do rent it as a short-term rental. Short-term rentals are popular in Austin. Like you said, there are regulations against them right now, and currently there is an appellate. There was a court deciding between the state of Texas and the city of Austin about short-term rentals, and that got appealed. So now it went through the first district courts, and now it's in the appellate courts. So it's up in the air right now whether or not the city of Austin can regulate short-term rentals, or whether they can ban short-term rentals altogether if you're a property owner. So that's why you put the caveat of legally right now is that legally you do need to apply and get the permit, but that might change in the near future.
Yeah.
So.
And I would assume you're still going to pay the city tax of 12% and the state tax of 5%, no matter what happens. So factor that in when you're running your numbers. But again, these are 3 ways that you can make great cash flow off real estate in Austin, and they're just not the typical give somebody the keys and forget about it type of deal. Although you don't want to do that with regular rentals either. You can double or lots of times triple your cash flow with these strategies, and we're absolutely here to help. Reach out to us at themoreheadteam.com or comment in the comments below with any questions you might have, and we'll make sure to answer them.